Before I get started, if you enjoy Far From Home, here's another show you might like.
Adventure isn't always something you can prepare for.
So John switched the dial on the helicopter's radio to the Mayday station and called Mayday. And he called. No response.
We're wasting time, and I feel like there's a time bomb inside of me that's about ready to go off.
You don't even want to think about how far you are from things, at least for me, mentally. I didn't want to think about that.
I'm Erin Jones. Discover real stories where humans and our habitat meet. Find Human Nature on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's all one word with just one N. Human Nature.
Welcome to Far From Home. I'm Scott Gurian. Each episode this season, we'll journey to a different part of the world, and this week, we're going to Japan. For more than 80 years, Tokyo's giant fish market called Tsukiji had a reputation for supplying some of the freshest and best quality seafood anywhere. Whether you were a professional chef or just an individual shopping for dinner, if you happened to live anywhere near Tokyo, this was the place you came. And the people of Japan didn't just keep all this great fish for themselves. Some also got shipped to restaurants around the world. Like right near me at Newark Airport here in New Jersey, there's a sushi stand that ordered a 300-pound tuna from Tsukiji 3 times a week. Most large buildings in Tokyo nowadays are sleek and modern, but Tsukiji was a relic from an earlier era. It was one of the few remaining buildings in the city that were built before the Second World War, and over the decades it had begun to show its age. That was exactly what made many people find it charming, however, and in recent years it became a big tourist destination. Still, with thousands of stalls, it was increasingly clear that it had outgrown its original space. The market had become dilapidated, unsanitary, and unsafe, since it was vulnerable to earthquakes and no longer adhered to current fire codes, so it was inevitable that something had to change. After years of planning, the city decided last fall to close Tsukiji and move it to a new location in a different neighborhood. And as luck would have it, I was visiting Japan for my first time right around then, a few weeks before the scheduled move, so I had one last chance to see Tsukiji before it disappeared. Coming up in the second half of this episode, I make a pilgrimage to attend one of Tsukiji's famed early morning tuna auctions. But first I wanted to get my bearings, so I went to the market during the daytime and asked my guide Yumiko to show me around. The first thing I noticed was how busy it was.
Wow, such a bustle of activity with everyone driving around in these little carts and trucks. Is it like 24 hours? Are they always here?
From midnight, they are so busy to work. But they usually close lunchtime, maybe 2 or something.
Okay.
But they need time to rest, to take a rest. Yeah.
So they close around 2 or so, and then they reopen at midnight every day?
Yes.
Wow.
And they close national holidays, Sundays, sometimes Wednesday.
Okay.
The market was built in the shape of a fan to accommodate a train that used to run through here, distributing fish to the rest of the country. But after that train made its last trip in the late 1980s, thousands of delivery trucks took its place. As was typical, on the day I visited, many of those trucks, as well as cars, motorbikes, and these small motorized carts, zoomed around the parking lot at a frenzied pace. There were no traffic signals of any sort, so Yumiko warned me to be careful.
This area, as you see, so many boxes on the ground.
So these are all trucks unloading fish that they just caught, probably like yesterday or overnight?
Yeah, overnight.
And they come right here to the market?
Yes, that's right. So, this market doesn't have any air conditioners.
So it gets really hot in the summer?
Yeah, even in the summertime. That's why in the boxes there are many ice cubes.
Yeah, keep the fish cold.
Yes, and I heard there are some ice cube plants outside in the market.
Ice cube plants,
Yes, see, like this.
Buckets of ice and styrofoam coolers here.
Yes.
So this is the largest fish market in all of Japan?
Yeah, the biggest. Very famous.
And all different types of fish?
Yes.
Yeah.
About 500 species.
Wow.
In a year.
Wow.
As it turns out, this was not just the biggest fish market in Japan, but the largest in the world, roughly equivalent in size to 55 American football fields, and generating sales of close to $6 billion a year. The name Tsukiji literally means reclaimed land, which was appropriate since this area where we were standing used to be part of the sea. There was both an outer market, which was always open to everyone, and an inner area, where access was strictly limited to wholesale buyers during the peak early morning hours. When I met Yumiko at 9:30 in the morning, most of the business in the inner market had already died down, but they weren't allowing members of the public to enter just yet, so we decided to explore the outer area first. She began by showing me a Shinto shrine at the edge of the parking lot. After walking through the wooden gate, we found some stone markers dedicated to sea creatures.
So we call this shrine Nami-yoke Shrine. This is a monument of maybe shrimps, lobsters.
A monument to shrimps and lobsters?
Yeah.
What does it say?
Lobster.
It just says lobster
Lobster.
in Japanese characters.
In a shrine, you see such ropes and with white papers.
Yes.
It means sacred.
It means what?
Sacred.
Sacred, yes. Shrimps and lobsters are sacred to the fishermen they are.
Yes.
That's their livelihood.
Back out on the street, she pointed to a building on the corner.
That wooden building,
Yeah.
there are 8 sushi school.
A sushi school.
Yes, if you want to be sushi chef,
Wow.
you can be with many tuition.
Yeah, it's expensive, yeah. I wonder if people come from around the world here to learn to be sushi chefs. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you were in the mood for sushi, there were plenty of options surrounding the market.
This is a second famous sushi restaurant here, very famous among foreigners.
These restaurants were originally built just for the people who worked at the market,
Yes.
not for the tourists, right?
Yes.
But now they've become very popular with the tourists.
And also fairly expensive.
I think about 4,000 yen for the sushi in a breakfast.
That's about $40 for a meal.
This little place, wow. And it used to be very cheap, I'm sure, for the workers, right? And now it's
but
taken off.
Anyhow, very fresh.
But it's very good
tasty,
quality.
Yeah.
Yes.
After spending a little while showing me around some of the side streets, Yumiko took me into one of the newer market buildings.
So we got a big long hallway with all sorts of fish vendors on either side. What do we have here? There's all kinds of clams and oysters, different crabs, giant sardines.
It's the liver of anglerfish.
Liver of
Yeah.
anglerfish, okay.
And this fish we said Alfonsino.
What is it?
This big eyes.
Yeah,
fish.
giant eyes. Do you know what kind of fish that is?
Alfonsino. So someone said the sniper.
Snapper.
Snapper.
Okay, red snapper.
Very tasty, and I heard they live also in a deep sea. That's why they have big eyes
Okay.
to get light.
There's all kinds of fish here I've never seen before. We don't have a lot of these fish back home.
Oh yeah.
Oh, fresh wasabi here. All different prices depending on the size, just the roots.
Finally, around 11 o'clock, they began letting visitors into the inner market, so the two of us went to check it out.
So the market is a giant kind of warehouse with open sides. Everyone making deliveries and picking stuff up and dropping it off. We're walking through the aisles. There's just big white signs above with, I guess, the name of each business. And guys are just cleaning off all the tables, hosing them down with soap and water, moving boxes around. Got some buckets of fish guts here, heads and bones. So this is the end of their workday now.
Yes,
They've
yes.
been here since midnight,
Yes.
and they're just kind of shutting down now, emptying out the ice. They've already sold most of their fish at this point.
Or they have a big refrigerator.
Refrigerator. They
Minus 60.
keep minus 60 Celsius to keep till the next day.
We saw all kinds of fish, ranging from squid, eel, and sea bream to pike, salmon, and highly sought-after abalone, which sold for the equivalent of about $85 per pound. But there was one kind of fish that seemed to get much more attention than everything else. We saw it back when we were in the outer market.
Wow, what is that? Frozen
Tuna.
blocks of tuna. Okay.
Eyeballs. Tuna eyeballs.
Tuna eyeball. What do they do with tuna eyeballs? In soup. Okay.
I remember my grandma loved the eyeballs, fish eyeballs.
Fish eyeball soup, it gives a nice flavor.
They said very tasty and very healthy or something.
I don't know how I would feel if I was making a pot of soup and I saw these eyes staring up at me. I'd be a little scared, I think.
See the knife?
Wow.
Especially for tuna. Because
Giant,
tuna
sharp
is
knives.
a big fish.
Wow.
They need long knives. Usually 2 person kill tuna.
Okay. That knife, it's like a sword.
Yeah.
It's so big and long.
That's why there are some knife shops outside.
Japanese knives are known for their high quality steel.
I saw a crowd of tourists gathered around one of the booths up ahead.
These guys are demonstrating how they cut a tuna. So he's holding up a sign. He's explaining different parts of the fish have different fat contents. From the crown of the head to the tail. Crown of the head is the highest price. Looks like as you get farther back, the price is lower and the meat is of less quality.
I had heard that some of these tuna can sell for tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars per fish. So I asked Yumiko why.
So they have the big auction in the middle of the night. The tuna goes for the highest prices.
I think so.
Why is tuna valued more than any other fish?
Japanese love tuna.
Is it very tasty?
Yeah, tasty.
Okay. They're willing to pay the most for tuna.
Yeah, even children, they love tuna.
Children love tuna, yeah.
When I told friends I was planning to take a trip to Tokyo, the ones who'd been there before all said, "Oh, you've got to see a tuna auction." So I decided to come back on my own to do just that. It wasn't going to be easy, though. I found out that although the auctions take place early each morning, only a small group of visitors was allowed in. Just 120 tourists a day, to be precise, in 2 groups of 60. The first group enters around 5:50 a.m. and the second one at 6:10. But these spots were highly sought after, so people often began waiting in line hours in advance to make sure they got in. This was going to be interesting.
It is just before midnight, and I am standing on a train platform here in Tokyo. I'm catching one of the last trains out here because the train stopped running right at midnight.
I think I'm crazy for doing this, but I'm heading back to the fish market to wait in line for 5 or 6 hours to see the auction. It was still pretty early when I arrived in the Tsukiji neighborhood, and I didn't have to be in line just yet, so I killed some time grabbing a bite to eat in a 24-hour seafood restaurant.
May I have the tempura, please? Yes, just one. Arigato. So I'm back out on the street now. I just finished eating, and I have to say I love how fresh all the fish is in this country. It makes me really jealous of the people who live here, who get to enjoy this all the time. Anyway, it's now about 1 o'clock, and I'm heading over to the Fish Information Center to reserve my place in line. And I'm walking through the streets of the outer fish market, which was totally bustling when I was here earlier during the day, but now it's really quiet and empty, dark, and there's hardly anyone around.
That wasn't surprising, though, because this was the part of the market that catered mainly to tourists. Just a few blocks away in the wholesale area, people working for hundreds of fish companies were just starting their shifts. I wandered over to the place I was supposed to go, and it was a good thing I came as early as I did, because dozens of people were already waiting in line.
Tell me your names and where you're from.
Michael, and this is Shirley. We're from Sydney.
How long have you been in Japan?
About 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we just flew in, literally. Like, we had dinner and came here.
You got off a plane, and you came to sit on a street corner in Tokyo in the middle of the night here.
That's what you do, right?
Why did you decide to come out here?
Last time we were out here, probably about 5 months ago, we missed coming here. We were too late, so I think we made the trip specially, the pilgrimage, I guess, to Tsukiji.
What is it about the fish market and about the tuna auction you've heard that made you want to come out here?
I'm a chef, so anything to do with fish and tuna, I'm all about.
What kind of chef are you? Do you cook a lot of fish?
Japanese.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So as a chef who works with these fish, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what would you say to people who say, oh, you're crazy coming on your vacation, sitting out in the Tokyo street corner at 2 a.m?
Yeah, I'd say they're crazy. This is exactly where I want to be in life.
I met Lee and Jacqueline from Birmingham when they first showed up, running down the line and counting the number of people ahead of them to make sure they weren't too late. Then they cheered other newcomers as they arrived.
Yay! Yeah, 90, 91, 91, 92, 93. You guys are in. Yeah.
It felt like an accomplishment because they'd returned for a second night in a row after their failed attempt to see the auction the previous day.
The website does say registration starts at 5 a.m. and I'm like, the Lonely Planet says 3:30, so we were like, we'll get there for 3. And then got here for 3. Little do we know, we just step out this taxi, £40 down because taxis are expensive, and got out and there's a security guard saying like, nah.
They'd arrived too late to snag a spot and were turned away.
Feeling dreary as anything and just so underwhelmed. We've missed it. Really gutted. So we got here really early today because we stayed up late rather than going to bed early.
Yeah, we had a different plan today. We just went drinking, stayed up. Here we are.
I asked Lee why they decided to go through all this effort.
So Jacqueline was very much interested in coming here, seeing this. I got more interested when I heard it was moving because I'd like to see the old thing and then maybe come back and see the new thing.
This is the last day that we can go because it's closed tomorrow and we just need to see it today. So we went out for a drink and then realised, oh my God, are we too late? So we just ran.
Are you thinking this is going to be like a highlight of your trip to Japan?
I mean, it could be. I mean, if this is like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, I'm going to be really disappointed because we've been here 2 days in a row. My sister at home was like, what are you doing up that early? Why are you going to a fish market? And why didn't you get in? Why is there a guest list? Like really baffled by the whole situation. And I was like, everyone says this is amazing, something you really have to do when you're in Tokyo. And I just thought, why not? Let's just do it and just give it a go. So hopefully it is going to live up to my expectations.
We waited out on the street for a while, engaging in small talk. They shared with me some tips about the city.
Oh yeah, so we get to Bar High Five or Mimi Bar down in Ginza. It's about 10 minutes away.
Okay.
So
and taught me some basic Japanese they'd picked up since they arrived.
Erige oniga shimasu, which means in English, please. Erige oniga shimasu. And we have like konnichiwa, which is obviously hello, but we
After about an hour, the guards opened the doors and let us into the building.
So we are entering the Fish Information Center. They're handing us colored vests so they can identify which group we're in. Looks like the first 60 have chartreuse colored. We're in the second group of 60, so we've got green. I'm putting it on like a basketball jersey.
I mean, I've never felt sexier in my whole entire life. I'm not going to lie.
At least we get to sit inside. I was afraid we'd have to sit out on the street corner all these hours.
Yeah, same.
It was nothing fancy, though. It was basically just a big rectangular room with a dividing line down the center, separating one group from the other. A few historic photos and a map of the market hung on the white walls. There were no chairs, so we all sat on the hard wooden floor, trying our best to be comfortable as we waited there through the night. Around 4 a.m., one of the longtime fish buyers, a guy named Kosei, walked in the back door, introduced himself, and explained to us how the auction operates. Like most days, he said he expected around 1,000 tuna to be auctioned off this morning. Some were freshly caught off the shores of Japan, but the ones we would see were captured by ships that had spent the past year or two out at sea in all parts of the world. The fish were then preserved in freezers set at around 75 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, he explained. He told us what he looks for in a tuna.
I assess the shape first, tuna shape.
He starts off looking for a moderately sized fish.
Not thin, but not too thick.
Then he and the other bidders use hooks to dig a small amount of flesh from the fish's tail and see if it feels right.
Not watery, but not too fatty, not oily.
After that, he takes out his flashlight.
And evaluate the shade, tuna color. Bright red color is better. I write the numbers and I decide at what price I would buy.
At 5:30 each morning, a bell rings to begin the auction.
And immediately the shouts of the auctioneer fill the air. Chirin, 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 はい、おはようございます。はい、1番からお願いします。はい、1番、1番、1番、1番、1番、1番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、2番、like this. We bidders use hand signals to show the price. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6, 7, 8, 9. The whole process is over in just a few seconds. And then the auctioneer moves on to the next fish.
He said choosing a high-quality tuna takes years of experience, and although he's been doing this for 2 decades, it's still hard to always get it right.
It's like a gamble each time. Assessing tuna is most difficult because we have to evaluate one big whole tuna by just small cut of the tail. Actually, sometimes I fail in my evaluation of tuna, once in 7 times or 8 times. After outbidding, after dissecting, then it was sometimes a lot of black spots in the meat. Or texture is not good, watery texture or dry texture. Or sometimes not good color. So when I got not good tuna, my morale is down. But I'm responsible for my evaluation of tuna, and I'll have to phone call to my customers. Hi, good morning. How are you? Good, thank you. It's a beautiful day today. Very hot today. By the way, I outbid not so good tuna in the morning, but I'll discount it for you a lot. Would you mind using it? Like this. Of course, I speak in Japanese, usually.
He said that normally he spends $3,000 to $5,000 per fish, and to break even, he aims to resell it for about $21 per pound. Kosei eventually said goodbye, leaving the room full of tourists in our high-visibility vests to continue our long wait. I turned to Jacqueline.
So we've been here 2.5 hours. We've still got an hour and a half to go. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm sat on the cold floor in high vis, waiting to go see some tuna and when questioning what I'm doing with my life, to be honest with you. I have this sort of like romanticized image in my head that it's going to be like really sort of wonderful Japanese experience, but I'm just getting slightly more sort of saddened by the whole situation.
It feels like we're in a storm shelter or something here.
Yeah,
like
I think
we're all
so.
refugees.
We do look like we're in a storm shelter and everyone at home is worrying about us, but yet we're just here trying to see some tuna.
Did you manage to get some sleep before? You were resting, I saw. Or trying to rest.
No, I was like closing my eyes, but I was still listening to your conversations, to be honest. No, I did not sleep.
I tried resting myself, but it was hard to doze off for more than a few minutes, given the uncomfortable surroundings as well as the noise. We were all pretty exhausted, but at a certain point we got to that place where we'd been awake for so long that we simply stopped being sleepy anymore. Finally, just before 6 o'clock, the guards called our group.
That's us.
Okay, here we go.
We stepped out the door, blinking in the morning light.
It's so weird to see the sun. We've been in that room, we've lost all track of night and day.
A team of guards wearing navy blue uniforms and white gloves escorted us across the parking lot, directing us carefully through the traffic jam of motorized delivery carts and making sure no one wandered away from the group.
Hi, go, go, go!
Wow, and we've just arrived at the entrance to the warehouse, and the garage door is open, and we can see just all on the floor, there's stacks of frozen tuna. They all have markings on them, stickers identifying the particular fish. They're pretty big, like the size of small children. It's pretty cool. Okay, so let's see, there's an auction going on there, and now we're going into a building where there's yet another auction taking place. And the auction is underway. The auctioneers are standing up in front, and in the whole room there's dozens, I'd say even hundreds of bidders. They all have hats with metal signs on them that identify who they are. They have numbers. and they're all walking around inspecting each of the fish.
In between each of the auctions, the auctioneer rang a bell to call everyone to order and get them ready to start the next bidding process. The room had yellow walls and concrete floors, and because of the refrigeration, it was pretty chilly. The bidders were mostly wearing jeans and black rubber boots. They were all men.
Okay, looks like that auction just ended, and now the workers here have these giant hooks. They're just using them to grab a hold of the fish, one on each side, the front and the back, and then they pick up the fish and load them onto these wooden carts, and then they just get in front with the two handles and pull them away.
From there, the fish were wheeled back to stalls in the wholesale market, where they were cut up to be resold to supermarkets, restaurants, and even individual shoppers. We watched the process for about 20 minutes before it was time to leave. As we headed out, I turned to Lee.
So what do you make of this whole thing?
It's genuinely fascinating to watch. I think people should generally know more about the food chain, and this is quite an interesting insight. It's a lot of fish coming through here every day, and I had no idea how this part of the process works, so it's really interesting to see.
Does this change at all the way you think about fish or about sushi?
No, not yet, because ultimately I'm only really interested in what it looks like once it's on the plate. But what I'm interested in is I'm probably going to try the freshest sushi in the world shortly, so then we'll see what happens afterwards.
After staying up all night, we'd worked up quite an appetite, so Lee, Jacqueline, and me, along with this Polish guy we met, decided to get sushi for breakfast. And we figured we might as well try the best, so we went to one of those $40 places Yumiko had shown me the day before. I got the omakase, or chef's choice plate. Now, I have to admit that I was never a huge fan of sushi in the past. I mean, I usually just order a California roll or something like that. But this sushi was amazingly good, and it totally changed my perspective. A few weeks after I recorded that story last September, the inner Tsukiji fish market closed for good, and this spring it was demolished to make way for a parking lot and a transportation hub for next year's Summer Olympics. The new Toyosu market, about a mile and a half away that replaces it, is without a doubt a big upgrade. It's bright and modern, and it doesn't have the problem with rats that the old market had. On the other hand, it's harder to get to, and if you go to see a tuna auction now, you'll need to stand in a viewing area behind a glass wall. Visitors have complained online that it's sterile and soulless and has about as much charm as your local Costco. Visit farfromhomepodcast.org and follow me on Instagram to see some photos and videos from the market. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, and there's a link on my website if you want to sign up for my mailing list. So I'll send you an email with bonus content every time I release a new episode. As usual, thanks to Katie McGee for editorial assistance and to the Public Radio Exchange for podcast hosting and technical support. My Season 2 logo comes from Polemic, which designs award-winning experiences all over the world at the intersection of culture, commerce, and community. Find out how they could help your business at polemicdesign.com. My credit music, which you're listening to right now, comes from violinist David Shulman. If you like it, you could check out more of his work at his website, quietlifemotel.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.